If you've ever walked up to your own front door and suddenly felt that something was terribly wrong, you'll understand what I felt that afternoon. I had just come back from 2 quiet weeks visiting my cousin Helen in Florida, warm sun, calm mornings, and no worries. I was relaxed, maybe even happy. But the second I put the key into my lock, the peace shattered. The key wouldn't turn. Not even a little. At first, I thought maybe my hands were tired from the trip. I twisted, jiggled, pushed. Nothing. The metal scraped but refused to move. My stomach tightened, and my heart began to pound so hard I could hear it in my ears. It was as if someone had changed the lock. My God, they had changed the lock. For a moment, I stood there on my own porch, the porch I'd scrubbed with my own hands for years, staring at the door of the house I'd bought with 40 years of sweat and aching bones. 40 years cleaning offices, bathrooms, and hallways so spotless you could eat off the floors. And now, my key didn't fit. I pressed my hand against the door, trying to steady myself. The afternoon air felt heavier, colder. Then I heard footsteps inside. Soft at first, then closer, sharper, like a warning. The doorknob turned from the other side. When the door opened, I forgot to breathe. There she was, Emily, my daughter-in-law. But not the Emily I'd known for 3 years. Not the smiling, polite, soft-spoken woman who used to call me Mom and bring me flowers on Sundays. No, this Emily looked at me with a face I'd never seen before. Her eyes were cold. Her lips curled into a thin, cruel smile. "Mother-in-law," she said, her voice flat, almost amused. "We changed everything. This is our house now." For a second, the world tilted. My knees nearly gave out. "Our house?" I clutched the doorframe to keep from falling. "Emily, what did you just say?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm even though my chest was burning. "This house is mine. I bought it. I pay the taxes. I pay the bills." "Not anymore," she said, still smiling, that hateful, proud smile. "Robert and I have been working on this for months. All the papers are ready. You can't stay here anymore. It's time for you to understand that things have changed." Something inside me cracked. It wasn't just my heart, it was something deeper. The trust I'd built all my life, the belief that love and family meant safety. Gone. But right there, inside the breaking, something else woke up, a strength I hadn't felt in years. I smiled. A calm, slow smile that came from the part of me that remembered who I used to be, the woman who had survived everything. "Well," I said, pulling my phone from my purse, the one Robert had given me last year, saying, "So you can be more connected, Mom." "How nice of you to say that, Emily. Because the time has come to show you who really runs this family." Her eyes flickered, confusion, maybe fear. She didn't understand why I wasn't crying, why I wasn't begging. But I knew something she didn't. When a 67-year-old woman smiles after her own child has betrayed her, it's because she still has one last card to play, and that card can destroy everything. As she stared at me, my mind drifted back 40 years, to the day my husband left. He walked out one December morning, taking every dollar we had, leaving me with rent due and a 5-year-old boy asking why Daddy wasn't coming back. That boy was Robert. The same Robert now hiding behind his wife like a guilty shadow. I looked past Emily, straight into the hallway, and saw him. My son. My only child. "Robert," I said quietly, "do you remember when you used to ask me why I came home so late from work? Why my hands were always red and rough?" He couldn't look at me. He stared at the floor like a little boy caught stealing. "You remember, don't you?" I continued. You wanted to know why we couldn't go to the movies like other families. Why Christmas gifts were small. I told you I was saving for something special. I never told you what that something was. I took a deep breath. Ever since your father left us, I worked 3 jobs. Every single day. The memories hit me like waves. The bakery at dawn, the smell of yeast and soap. The offices by day, the echo of vacuums and the sting of bleach. The clinics at night, where I'd clean until 2 in the morning and walk home under streetlights, my feet swollen, my body shaking, but my heart steady. Every dollar went into a jar. Every blister, every burn, every sleepless night bought us a future. When Robert turned 20, I had saved $95,000. By 30, it was $180,000, enough to buy this house. A small, safe home with 3 bedrooms, a big kitchen, a little garden where I imagined my grandchildren playing one day. This house, I told them, my voice trembling but proud, wasn't a gift from anyone. I built it out of pain, sacrifice, and love. For you, Robert. For your future. For a moment, I saw something flicker in my son's eyes, guilt, maybe. But before he could speak, Emily stepped closer. That's very touching, mother-in-law, she said with a smirk. But times have changed. Robert and I have our own plans now. We don't need your stories. And just like that, the last piece of my heart broke. I still remember the first day I met her, that Sunday in March, when Robert showed up at the park holding her hand. She was beautiful, polite, radiant. Mom, he'd said, this is Emily, the woman of my life. She hugged me like we'd known each other forever. Martha, she said sweetly, Robert told me you're the best mother in the world. Thanks to you, he's the man he is today. What mother could resist that? I opened my heart to her completely. I let her into my home, my kitchen, my life. When they got married, I spent $8,000 of my savings to throw them a beautiful wedding at the church hall. I even gave her a gift, the house deed, not because I was handing it over, but because I wanted her to know she was family now. The first months were perfect. We cooked together, laughed, shared recipes. She asked me for advice about keeping Robert happy, about being a good wife. And I believed every word. But poison doesn't taste bitter at first. The change began with small comments, easy to miss. Oh, Martha, this sofa is so old. Don't you think it's time to update? Your curtains feel a little heavy. Maybe something lighter? At first, I smiled. Sure, honey. Someday. Then I heard her talking to her friends. Yes, we live with my mother-in-law, but it's temporary while we save for our own house. Temporary. The word kept echoing. Days turned into months. My favorite vase accidentally broke. My armchair got a mysterious coffee stain. The living room slowly changed, my furniture stacked in corners, replaced with new pieces she called modern. Emily, I said one night, this is my house. You can't just change everything. Oh, Martha, she laughed. Don't be so dramatic. It's for everyone's good. The place looks so much better now. Robert sat silently, nodding, proud of his wife's good taste. That night, I cried quietly in my bedroom. The next week, she invited her friends over. I came home from the market to find them drinking coffee in my kitchen, using my dishes. When I walked in, Emily smiled as if I were a stranger. Girls, this is the mother-in-law I told you about, she said. They smiled politely, pity in their eyes. Oh, yes, one said, mine is the same way. They don't realize times have changed. They talked about me in the third person, in my own kitchen. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Weeks passed. My family photos vanished from the walls, replaced by glossy pictures of Emily and Robert. My grandmother's china disappeared for safekeeping. Even my Christmas ornaments, the ones I'd kept for 40 years, were boxed up and replaced with store-bought perfection. When her parents came to visit from Denver, Emily had even rearranged my bedroom. Her mother walked through my home and said, "What a beautiful house you two have. You can tell you decorated it with such great taste." You too. I stood there like a ghost in my own home. That night, I overheard Emily whispering to her mother in the kitchen. "We've almost made her uncomfortable enough to leave. A few more weeks and she'll move out on her own." That was the night I stopped being blind. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, the phone rang one morning. It was Mr. Morales, my brother Arthur's lawyer in Houston. His voice was calm but serious. "Mrs. Martha," he said, "I'm sorry to inform you your brother passed away last night. But there's something else, he left everything to you." I froze. Arthur and I hadn't spoken in years. How much are we talking about?" I whispered. "Roughly $340,000, ma'am, in properties, bank accounts, and investments." My knees went weak. Arthur was gone, but he'd left me enough to rebuild my life. What I didn't know was that Emily had been standing in the hallway, listening to every word. A few minutes later she appeared, her face painted with fake sadness and greedy excitement hiding behind her eyes. "Oh, mother-in-law," she said softly. "I'm so sorry about your brother. But how wonderful that he remembered you. $340,000 is a lot of money. You must feel relieved, at your age." At my age. The words burned. That evening, when Robert came home, he already knew. Emily had told him. He hugged me with a warmth I hadn't felt in years. "Mom, I'm so glad you'll finally be comfortable." Comfortable. Safe. That's what they said. The next morning, Emily brought me coffee, smiling sweetly. She wanted to cook with me again, talk like old times. "I've been thinking," she said as we chopped vegetables, "you deserve a fresh start. You could renovate the house, make it beautiful again." Her eyes glimmered when I mentioned I might set some of the inheritance aside for future grandchildren. "That's such a wonderful idea," she said. "Robert and I could help you with the planning." For a brief moment, I let myself believe her. Maybe she'd changed. Maybe we could be a family again. But that night, through the thin wall between our rooms, I heard her whispering to Robert, their voices low, excited, full of plans. I couldn't hear every word, but one phrase froze my blood: "We just need her to sign the papers." I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my heart thudding like a drum. Papers. What papers? The next day, she offered to go with me to the bank. "You shouldn't go alone, mother-in-law. These things can be confusing for an older person." At the bank, she took notes, asked questions about investments, joint accounts, legal documents, things I hadn't even mentioned. And then, late one night, I heard her voice again, this time on the phone. She didn't know I was standing in the hallway, listening. "No, Mom," she whispered. "I'm telling you it's almost done. The old woman has fallen for it completely. She's going to sign the house over to Robert. We'll have full control soon." The phone slipped from my shaking hand. She kept talking. "Once we have the power of attorney, we can handle all her accounts. And we've already started collecting proof that she's losing her mind. I tell Robert she forgets things, repeats herself, he believes every word." I felt my knees buckle. They were planning to destroy me, to declare me insane. I pressed my back against the wall, shaking, trying not to sob out loud. Emily's voice continued, cold and confident. By the time she realizes, it'll be too late. The house, the inheritance, everything will be ours. And then Robert's footsteps approached. "Who are you talking to?" he asked. "My mom, honey," Emily replied quickly. I couldn't sleep. "Is everything okay?" "Perfect," she said. "I was just telling her how close we are to finishing everything with your mom's house." Robert hesitated, then sighed. "You're right. Let's do it, before she changes her mind." I felt the world collapse around me. My son, my only child, had just agreed to betray me. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until the first light of dawn, and I made a promise to myself: they were not going to win. They thought I was weak. They thought age made me blind. They were wrong. Because the next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years, a plan forming quietly, piece by piece, in the back of my mind. They wanted war. And I was ready to give them one. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened. The smell of coffee filled the air, and sunlight poured through the window. Emily stood at the counter, smiling like the devil in pearls. "Morning, mother-in-law," she said sweetly. "Sleep well?" I smiled back. "Like a baby." She didn't know that while she slept, I was wide awake, planning every single move of my next step. I poured myself coffee, pretending my hands shook a little. Let her think I was weak, forgetful. Let her think her plan was working. Because while she was plotting to take my house, I was building my own trap, quietly, carefully, the way only a mother who's seen too much can. "Emily," I said softly, "about what we talked about yesterday, putting the house in Robert's name for the tax benefits, do you think you could find out exactly what documents we need?" Her eyes lit up like fireworks. "Of course. Actually, my cousin Javier is a lawyer. He can help us with everything." I nodded slowly. "That's wonderful, dear. You're so efficient." She smiled, proud of herself. And I smiled too, but for a very different reason. When she left for work, I closed the curtains, sat down at the kitchen table, and called the one person I knew I could trust, my childhood friend, Linda. We had been friends for 50 years. We'd raised our kids together, cried together, buried our husbands, and shared every secret worth keeping. When she picked up the phone, her voice was warm and familiar. "Martha, you're back. How was Florida?" "I never went to Florida," I said quietly. "I need your help, Linda. My son and his wife are trying to steal everything from me." Silence. Then, "What?" "I overheard them last night. They want me declared insane. They're planning to forge my signature and sell the house." "Oh my God, Martha. That's—" "I don't need sympathy," I interrupted gently. "I need evidence. Bring your recorder, the one you use for the neighborhood meetings. And come now. Please." Linda didn't ask another question. Within an hour, she was at my house, eyes wide with disbelief. I told her everything, every word I'd heard, every lie Emily had told, every cold look from my son. When I finished, Linda's hands were trembling. "Those monsters," she whispered. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to give them exactly what they want," I said with a slow, dangerous smile. "But on my terms." That afternoon, we installed small recording devices around the house, one in the kitchen, one in the living room, one near the phone. Linda showed me how to record conversations with my cell phone without anyone noticing. From that day forward, my house became a theater. And I was the lead actress. I started forgetting things. My keys, my glasses, the date. Oh, mother-in-law, Emily would say with that fake concern, you forgot again? I told you it's Tuesday. I'd sigh softly. Did you? Oh dear. I'm sorry, Emily. My memory isn't what it used to be. She'd smile when she thought I wasn't looking. Exactly the reaction I wanted. At night, I'd hear her whisper to Robert, see? I told you. She's slipping. It's only a matter of time before she can't handle herself. And I'd smile in the dark, holding my phone close, recording every word. Days turned into weeks. Every morning, I acted weaker, more confused. But every night, I became sharper, stronger. I read legal documents, called lawyers under fake names, and learned more about my rights than Emily could imagine. One lawyer, Mr. Hernandez, explained family fraud to me in simple terms. If someone tries to trick you into signing property away, it's a crime, he said. Gather evidence. Don't confront them until you have everything. Another lawyer, Ms. Ruiz, warned me about power of attorney. Never sign one. With that paper, they can do anything, sell your home, drain your accounts, even commit you to a care facility. And a third, Mr. Morales, told me how to protect my inheritance. Update your will, create a trust, name someone honest as executor. Document everything. I wrote it all down. Step by step, my plan grew roots. By the time a week had passed, Emily thought she was winning. She walked around the house like a queen, rearranging things again, whispering on the phone, smiling her little victory smile. She had no idea every whisper, every scheme, every ugly word was being recorded. Then came October 10th, the day I decided to end the game. That morning, I walked into the kitchen in my robe, looking tired and small. Robert was reading the paper, Emily was buttering toast. I let my shoulders droop and my voice tremble. Kids, I said softly, I've been thinking about everything, about the house, about the inheritance, about my future. Robert looked up, his brow furrowed. Emily leaned forward, eyes sharp. I've decided you're right, I said. I'm too old to manage so many responsibilities. Maybe it's time I step back. Emily's fork paused midair. Oh, mother-in-law, that's wonderful. You'll be so much more relaxed. Yes, I said, forcing a weak smile. I just need some time to think. I'll visit my cousin Linda in Florida for 2 weeks. When I get back, we'll do all the paperwork you think is best. Are you sure? Robert asked gently. Yes. I've made up my mind. Emily's grin stretched almost unnaturally wide. That's perfect. We can take care of the house while you're away. Don't worry about a thing. Thank you, I said. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Emily, could you help me pack? Of course. That night, while she folded my clothes and slipped little notes about rest and relaxation into my suitcase, I asked the question I needed her to answer. When I get back, do you think your cousin Javier could come by with the papers? Absolutely, she said, her eyes sparkling. He can bring everything, power of attorney, transfer documents, even the bank forms. You'll just have to sign. I smiled. Wonderful. She didn't see the small red light blinking under the nightstand, the recorder catching every word. The next morning, Robert carried my bags to the taxi. Rest and relax, Mom, he said with a bright smile. Don't worry about anything. I nodded. I won't. But I wasn't going to Florida. I was going to war. Instead of the airport, I told the driver to take me to the Royal Hotel downtown. 20 minutes later, I checked in under my maiden name, Martha Lewis, and paid for 2 weeks up front. Linda had already connected me with someone special, Sergio Mendoza, an ex-police investigator who now handled private fraud cases. He was tough, quiet, and sharp as glass. "Mrs. Lewis," he said when we met in the lobby, "my job is to document everything your son and daughter-in-law do while you're gone, video, audio, timestamped. All legally admissible. Can you record inside my house?" I asked. "With your authorization, yes. You're the legal owner." He set up hidden cameras in the kitchen, the living room, the office, small black lenses tucked into corners and behind books. Watching the screen later felt like watching ghosts walk through my life. On the first day, they moved my belongings into the garage. On the second, they began packing up everything they called old junk. And by the third day, the real show began. Emily called someone on speakerphone. Sergio's equipment caught it all, crystal clear. "Javier, I need you to bring the documents tomorrow. The power of attorney, the house transfer, and the bank forms." A man's voice replied, "Do you have her signature?" "I don't need it," Emily said confidently. "I've got samples from old letters. Your secretary can forge it, just like last time." I froze when I heard that. Just like last time. What had they already forged? "And what if she comes back early?" the man asked. "She won't," Emily laughed. "I put sleeping pills in her coffee before she left. She'll be half asleep for days." My stomach turned. Sleeping pills. They had drugged me. Sergio watched my face as we replayed the footage in the hotel room. "You've got enough to bury them," he said quietly. But it wasn't over yet. On the fourth day, a real estate agent arrived. The cameras caught every word. "The house is in great shape," he told Emily. "We could list it for $520,000 and sell fast." "Perfect," she said. "We want to close quickly. My mother-in-law is developing dementia, so we need to handle her assets before she gets worse." My chest tightened. Developing dementia. And then, the most painful scene of all. Robert, my son, my baby, packing up the photo albums. The pictures of him as a child. His drawings. The small souvenirs from our vacations together. "What do we do with all this?" he asked. "Throw it out," Emily replied without even looking. "It's just junk." He did. He threw 40 years of my life into trash bags. When I saw that footage, I cried silently. Then I wiped my tears and whispered, "All right. That's enough." By the end of the second week, Sergio had over 100 hours of footage, conversations, phone calls, forged documents, real estate meetings, all of it timestamped and authenticated. On October 25th at 3 p.m., I checked out of the hotel and took a taxi home. The sun was bright, the air sharp. In my purse was a small USB drive, the weapon that would end their game. When I reached the house, I tried my key even though I already knew what would happen. The key wouldn't turn. They had changed the locks. Instead of fear, I felt a strange calm. Everything was going exactly as I'd expected. I knocked on the door. Footsteps. The click of heels. Then the door opened. Emily stood there, arms crossed, wearing that same cruel smile. "Back so soon, mother-in-law? We weren't expecting you." I smiled back. "I can see that. What are you doing here?" "We told you things have changed." "Oh, they have," I said softly, taking out my phone. "But not the way you think." She frowned. "What do you mean?" I think it's time we all had a little talk. Call Robert, please. Let's go to the backyard. I want both of you to hear something. She hesitated, suspicious. Why? You'll see. As she turned to call him, I opened the recording app on my phone and pressed play. The voice that filled the air wasn't mine, it was hers. Relax, Mom. I've almost got the old woman to sign the house over to Robert. With her inheritance, we'll have everything. Once she's in the nursing home, we can sell the place. The blood drained from her face. What, where, how? Keep listening, I said quietly. Robert came running out, confused. Mom, what's going on? Sit down, I said. Both of you. You need to hear this. The audio kept playing. Emily's voice again, calm, calculating, don't worry. Robert believes everything. By the time she realizes, it'll be too late. Robert's eyes widened. Emily, what is this? She stammered, it's fake. She's lying. She's trying to trap us. Trap you? I whispered. Oh, darling, I don't need to trap you. You did that yourselves. Then I pulled the USB drive from my purse and placed it on the patio table. In here are over 100 hours of recordings, videos of you two selling my furniture, forging my signature, talking to real estate agents, and planning to put me in a nursing home. Robert's face went white. Mom, not a word, I said firmly. You've done enough. Emily tried to laugh, but her voice cracked. You can't prove anything. Oh, but I can, I said, stepping closer. Because I never went to Florida. I stayed right here in the city. I hired an investigator. And every single thing you did these past 2 weeks is on camera. For the first time since this nightmare began, silence filled the yard. Not the silence of fear, the silence before the storm breaks. I looked at Robert, my only son, the boy I had once carried in my arms when he was sick, the man I'd believed would protect me. He couldn't meet my eyes. And in that moment, I realized something painful but true: the war wasn't between me and Emily anymore. It was between me and the weakness I'd allowed for far too long. I straightened my shoulders, looked them both in the eyes, and said the words that would change everything. Now, let's see what the police have to say about family fraud. The words came out calm, almost too calm. But inside me, a storm was raging. Emily froze where she stood, her mouth open, eyes darting toward Robert for help. He looked lost, like a child who'd wandered too far and couldn't find his way back. Mother-in-law, Emily finally said, forcing a laugh that trembled on her lips, you can't be serious. This is a misunderstanding. Is it? I asked softly. Because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot like betrayal. I pressed play on another recording. Emily's own voice filled the air, bright and cold. Once she's declared incompetent, Robert will sign everything. Then we'll remodel and sell. $1 million, easy. Robert staggered back as if the words had hit him physically. Emily, you said you were joking when you talked to your mom about that. Oh, stop being dramatic, she hissed. She's making it up, she edited that. Edited? I repeated, taking a step closer. You really think I spent 2 weeks in a hotel learning audio editing, Emily? No. I spent it gathering proof. I turned the phone toward them again, and the next clip played, her phone call with her cousin, Javier. Don't worry, I have samples of her handwriting. Your secretary can forge it perfectly, just like last time. Emily's face drained of color. She turned to Robert. Honey, she's setting me up. I never said that, Robert snapped. Enough. That's your voice. Don't lie to me. For a second, the mask fell off completely. The fake sweetness, the perfect composure, all gone. Emily's eyes went sharp and venomous. You spineless coward, she spat at him. You were part of it. You wanted this as much as I did. Robert's voice broke. No, I didn't. I thought. I thought we were helping her. Helping me? I whispered. By forging my signature? By planning to throw me into a nursing home? He looked down. I didn't know she planned that part. Emily laughed, short and ugly. Oh, don't act innocent. You signed the documents, remember? That was all I needed. I pressed record on my phone again, this time for the final confession. They argued, shouting over each other, both desperate to shift the blame. Every word, every accusation, captured. You told me to do it. You said it was the only way to secure the house. You brought the real estate agent. You wrote the fake letters. Their voices rose higher until Emily screamed, "Fine. I forged it. Are you happy?" I forged her stupid signature because she was too blind to hand over what should have been ours. Click. I stopped the recording and slipped the phone back into my purse. Thank you, I said quietly. That's the last piece I needed. Silence. Even the wind seemed to stop. Robert stared at me, pale and trembling. Mom, please. We can fix this. We'll undo everything. Undo? I repeated softly. You can't undo years of lies. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. Emily folded her arms, trying to recover her composure. You won't call the police, she said. You don't have the heart. You love your son too much. I met her eyes. You're right. I love my son. But that's exactly why I'm doing this. He needs to learn what love really means. She smirked. You wouldn't dare. And then I did. I dialed the number I'd saved under H. Hernandez. The lawyer answered on the second ring. Mr. Hernandez, I said, my voice steady, this is Martha. I have everything. They confessed on tape. Send the officers. Emily's face twisted. You called the police? Are you insane? No, I said. But you're about to find out what it feels like to be called that. Within 20 minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled up outside. Neighbors peeked through their windows, the quiet street buzzed with whispers. The officers stepped into the yard. One of them, a tall woman with kind eyes, looked at me first. Mrs. Martha Lewis? Yes. Ma'am, we received your lawyer's call. May we come in? Of course. Emily backed away as they entered. This is ridiculous. You have no right. The officer held up a folder. Actually, ma'am, we do. We have copies of the recordings and verified ownership documents for this property. We also have a warrant for search and seizure of forged materials. Robert looked as if the ground had disappeared beneath him. Mom, he whispered, please don't let them take us. But I didn't answer. I just turned and walked into the kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd once taught him to tie his shoes. The officers followed. They opened drawers, checked folders, took pictures. Every counterfeit document Emily had printed was neatly labeled in her handwriting. They photographed it all. When they came across the forged deed, the officer held it up. Mrs. Lewis, this is the document she mentioned? Yes. Emily lunged forward. That's not mine. The officer raised an eyebrow. Your name's on the email attachment, ma'am. Her voice cracked. You can't prove I sent it. The female officer smiled slightly. We already did. The metadata matches your laptop. Robert covered his face with his hands. Oh God. Then, for the first time since the betrayal began, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. But peace is never simple. As they handcuffed Emily, she twisted toward me, spitting words like venom. You think you've won? You think anyone's going to believe an old cleaning lady over me? I have friends. I have family. We'll get out. I stepped close enough for her to smell the lavender soap on my hands. Emily, I said softly, I spent 40 years cleaning the offices of lawyers, judges, and police captains in this city. I know people you can't even imagine. She froze. Her bravado cracked. The officer guided her toward the door. You have the right to remain silent, Robert tried to speak. Mom, please, just let me explain. Explain what? I asked. That you sold my furniture? That you threw away the pictures of your childhood? That you stood by while she poisoned me? He shook his head, tears spilling. I didn't know about the pills. I swear, I didn't. I wanted to believe him. God help me, I did. But every memory, every laugh, every Christmas, every moment we'd shared, was tangled now with lies. Mom, he whispered, please. I'll make it right. I looked at him, at my grown son who suddenly looked 12 again. You can't make it right, Robert. You can only face what you've done. As the patrol cars drove away, the neighborhood fell silent again. I stood alone in the yard, the autumn wind cold on my face. Linda came running from next door, she'd heard everything. Martha. Are you okay? I nodded slowly. I will be. She hugged me tight. You're the bravest woman I know. No, I said quietly. Just a mother who finally woke up. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt too big, too quiet. Every creak sounded like footsteps that weren't there. Every shadow reminded me of what I'd lost. I sat in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug of tea gone cold, staring at the door they'd tried to take from me. They say victory feels sweet. But that night, it felt hollow. Because even when justice arrives, it never brings back what betrayal steals: trust. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Mr. Hernandez. Mrs. Lewis, he said, the station confirmed the charges: family fraud, forgery, attempted dispossession, and elder abuse. With the recordings, it's a strong case. But they're offering to cooperate if you'll talk to them. Cooperate? I repeated. What does that mean? They're both blaming each other. Emily says Robert was the mastermind. Robert says she manipulated him. If you want to hear their statements, we can set up a meeting tomorrow. For a long moment, I said nothing. Then I whispered, yes. I want to hear what my son has to say. The next morning, I walked into the police station with my head high. The officers nodded respectfully. One led me down a hallway to a small interrogation room. Robert was already there, hands cuffed, eyes red. When he saw me, he tried to stand, but the officer motioned for him to sit. Mom, he said softly, thank you for coming. I didn't answer. I just sat across from him. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he began. Emily said it was just paperwork, that it would protect you. She said you'd get tax breaks, that we'd manage things for you. I stared at him. And you believed her? He nodded miserably. At first, yes. Then it got out of control. I wanted to stop, but I was scared. Scared of what? Of losing her. My heart twisted. So you were willing to lose your mother instead? He swallowed hard. I thought you'd never find out. She said she'd take care of everything. I didn't know she was planning to declare you incompetent. Robert, I said quietly, she told you she was putting me in a nursing home. I heard you agree. His voice cracked. I was confused, Mom. She kept saying it was temporary, that you'd be more comfortable there while we renovated. Renovated, I repeated, my chest tightening. You were going to sell my house. He buried his face in his hands. I'm sorry. For a long moment, I just looked at him, the son I'd carried, fed, and fought for. I searched his face for the little boy I once knew, the one who used to run to me after school, waving his report card, so proud of every B he earned. He was gone. I can forgive mistakes, Robert, I said softly. But betrayal is a choice. He looked up, tears running freely. Mom, please. I'll testify against her. I'll help the police. Just don't let them send me to prison. I felt the weight of every sleepless night, every bruise, every unpaid debt of motherhood. You made your choices. Now you'll face their consequences. I stood up. Goodbye, Robert. He reached for me, but the guard stopped him. Mom. Please. Don't walk away from me. I didn't turn back. When I stepped outside, the morning sun hit my face. The air smelled of rain and freedom. Linda was waiting by the car. How did it go? I smiled faintly. He said he was scared. That he didn't mean it. She sighed. Do you believe him? I believe he's sorry, I said. But sometimes sorry isn't enough. We drove home in silence. That afternoon, Mr. Hernandez called again. Mrs. Lewis, there's something you should know. Emily has requested a separate meeting. She says she has information to exchange for a lighter sentence. I laughed softly. Of course she does. She claims there's more money involved than we knew, bank transfers under Robert's name from your inheritance account. My blood ran cold. What? According to her, he already withdrew $30,000 while you were at the hotel. We're verifying it now. I gripped the phone. So even before I confronted them, he'd already started taking my money? Yes, ma'am. My throat tightened. Do whatever you have to do, Mr. Hernandez. I want it all back. After hanging up, I sat on the porch for hours, watching the sun sink behind the trees. The yard looked peaceful again, almost untouched, but I knew better. Evil doesn't always live in strangers, it often lives right inside our homes, smiling at our dinner table. That evening, as darkness crept across the lawn, I thought about everything that had happened. The anger, the heartbreak, the quiet strength that had risen from the ashes. And I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Because justice doesn't end with an arrest, it ends with the truth. And I had a feeling Emily wasn't done talking. The next day, I met Mr. Hernandez at the courthouse. Emily had agreed to a recorded statement. When she entered the room, handcuffed but still wearing lipstick, she smiled at me. Mother-in-law, she said, I guess we're family until the end. I said nothing. She leaned forward, her tone suddenly soft. You know, Robert wasn't as innocent as he looks. Mr. Hernandez switched on the recorder. Go on. Emily began to talk, slowly, deliberately, each sentence another knife. She revealed how they'd opened a joint account in Robert's name and transferred small amounts of my inheritance money into it every week. How they'd already met with a buyer for the house. How Robert had convinced a bank officer to fast-track the paperwork using my forged signature. And then she said something that chilled me to the bone. Robert was planning to move the money overseas. A joint investment with his colleague at the bank. I was supposed to get my share once it was done. Mr. Hernandez frowned. Do you have proof? She nodded. Check his email. There are receipts. I closed my eyes. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tear down the walls around me. But instead, I whispered, so it was both of them. Emily smiled faintly. He's not as sweet as you think. For the first time, I realized the depth of the rot. My son hadn't just followed, he'd led. Mr. Hernandez ended the session, promising new charges. I stood, walked to the door, and turned back to Emily. You destroyed your own life, I said. She tilted her head. So did he. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The storm was coming. That night, as the first drops of rain hit the windows, I sat alone with the USB drive on the table. It glowed faintly under the lamp, small, simple, but powerful enough to ruin 2 lives. I whispered to the empty house, you thought you were smarter than me. But you forgot one thing, mothers never stop fighting. Lightning flashed across the sky, bright and fierce, and I knew that the hardest part was still ahead, the trial. Because sometimes justice takes more than truth, it takes endurance. And I was ready for that, too. When the storm finally hit that night, thunder rolled like drums of war. Rain hammered against the windows, and the old house moaned with every gust of wind. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the piles of papers Mr. Hernandez had prepared, the evidence, the bank records, the statements. Everything was neat, labeled, airtight. In just 3 days, the court would open the case, Martha Lewis versus Robert and Emily Lewis, family fraud and forgery. I'd never been inside a courtroom in my life. I'd cleaned them plenty of times, scrubbed their floors till they shined, but I'd never sat in one as someone seeking justice. That thought alone sent a shiver through me. I wasn't scared of them anymore. I was scared of how much I'd lost before finding the courage to fight back. The next morning, Linda knocked on my door holding a small paper bag. Coffee and courage, she said with a smile. You'll need both. I laughed, though my voice trembled. I've needed courage my whole life, Linda. I'm just finally using it for myself. She squeezed my hand. You're stronger than you think. Those words stayed with me as we drove to the courthouse that Monday morning. The sky was pale gray, the kind that makes everything feel uncertain. The courtroom smelled like wood polish and tension. Robert sat on one side with his lawyer, eyes red and hollow. Emily sat next to him, perfectly dressed, her hair pulled back tight like she was auditioning for innocence. When she looked at me, she tried to smile, but the mask didn't hold. Her eyes betrayed her, nervous, calculating. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and silver hair, entered. Everyone rose. Court is now in session. Mr. Hernandez began the case methodically. He presented the ownership documents, the inheritance records, and then, the USB drive. Your Honor, he said, this device contains over 100 hours of audio and video evidence showing the defendants planning, executing, and confessing to acts of fraud, forgery, and attempted dispossession. Emily's lawyer objected, claiming invasion of privacy. The judge shook her head. Overruled. The property belonged to the plaintiff. The recordings were made legally. I sat silently as the clips played on the big screen. There was Emily's voice, confident, cruel. the old woman won't know what hit her. Once we have the papers, it's ours. Gasps filled the room. Even the clerk paused typing. Then came Robert's voice, "You're right. Let's do it fast before she changes her mind." The sound of my son's words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The tears had dried long ago. When the playback ended, the judge looked over her glasses at them. "Do either of you wish to comment?" Emily's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client was under extreme emotional pressure." Sit down," the judge said coldly. "We'll get to her statement later." Robert's lawyer leaned close to him, whispering urgently, but Robert only shook his head. I could see his lips move. "I'm sorry, Mom." Then the prosecution called me to the stand. The bailiff helped me up the steps. My knees shook, but my heart was steady. I took the oath and sat down, looking straight at the judge. "Mrs. Lewis," Mr. Hernandez said gently, "can you tell the court in your own words what happened?" I took a breath. The whole room went quiet. "I worked my whole life for what I have," I began. "Since I was 16. I cleaned offices, bathrooms, schools, anything that paid enough to keep my son fed. When my husband left, I told myself I'd never depend on anyone again. Every penny I earned went into savings. After 40 years, I bought my house outright." I paused. That house was my dream. My security. My legacy. Robert looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "When my son married Emily," I continued, "I thought I was gaining a daughter. Instead, I gained an enemy living under my roof." The judge leaned forward slightly, listening. "At first, she was kind. Then she changed. Slowly, she started replacing my things, erasing my memories. I thought it was just growing pains. But when I came home one day and my key didn't fit the lock, my voice cracked. I knew it wasn't my imagination anymore. I told them everything, how I'd overheard their plan, how I'd pretended to be confused, how I'd recorded every conversation." The courtroom was silent except for the sound of pens scratching across notepads. When I finished, the judge asked quietly, "Mrs. Lewis, why didn't you confront them earlier?" "Because love makes you blind," I said softly. "And because sometimes, we older women are taught to keep quiet. To keep peace." I kept peace until it almost destroyed me. The judge nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mrs. Lewis. You may step down." When I returned to my seat, Linda reached over and squeezed my shoulder. "You were incredible," she whispered. "But it wasn't over." "Not yet." Next, Emily took the stand. Her lawyer tried to paint her as desperate, pressured by finances. She cried, dabbed her eyes, spoke about stress and misunderstanding. But when Mr. Hernandez cross-examined her, the facade crumbled. "Ms. Lewis," he said, "did you or did you not instruct your cousin to forge the plaintiff's signature?" I don't remember." He clicked a remote, and her recorded voice played again. "Your secretary can forge it perfectly, just like last time." Her head dropped. "Okay, yes. I said that." "And did you put sleeping pills in Mrs. Lewis's coffee?" She looked at the judge, then back at him. "It was just to help her rest." "Rest?" he repeated. "Or silence?" Emily didn't answer. Then it was Robert's turn. He didn't take the stand willingly, but his lawyer had no choice. His confession was already on tape. "Mr. Lewis," Mr. Hernandez began, "why did you agree to these actions?" Robert's voice was barely a whisper. "Because I was weak. I wanted to make Emily happy." "Even at the cost of your mother's freedom?" He covered his face. I thought it was temporary. I thought, no further questions, Mr. Hernandez said quietly. For 2 days, testimonies continued: bankers, neighbors, handwriting experts, the investigator Sergio who set up the cameras. Each one built the wall higher around the truth. By the third day, the judge had seen enough. She looked over the courtroom, her expression solemn. This case is one of the most painful examples of familial betrayal I have seen in my 25 years on the bench. Mrs. Lewis, you have shown strength and intelligence beyond measure. She turned to Robert and Emily. You, on the other hand, exploited the love of a parent for personal gain. The law has no patience for such cruelty. Emily began to sob. Robert just sat motionless. Before I deliver my verdict, the judge said, I will allow the plaintiff a final statement. I stood slowly. Your Honor, I began, I don't seek revenge. I only seek peace. My home, my life's work, my dignity, they tried to take all of it. I want them to face what they did, so maybe no other mother has to. The judge nodded. And so they shall. Her gavel struck once. The sound echoed through the room. Emily Lewis, you are sentenced to 22 years in federal prison for fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Robert Lewis, you are sentenced to 18 years for conspiracy and aiding in fraud. The courtroom gasped. Emily screamed. Robert buried his face in his hands. My legs trembled, but not from fear, from release. As the bailiffs moved to escort them out, Robert looked up at me one last time. His lips moved silently. I'm sorry. Emily turned her head, her eyes filled with fury. This isn't over, you old witch, she hissed. I stepped forward just enough for her to hear me. Yes, it is. The doors closed behind them. For a long time, I just stood there, staring at the empty chairs where they'd sat. The courtroom slowly emptied, voices fading until only Linda and I remained. She turned to me. You did it, Martha. It's over. I shook my head. No, Linda. Justice is done. But peace takes longer. That evening, Mr. Hernandez called. Mrs. Lewis, we've also filed for compensation. The court will likely order the sale of their remaining assets. You should recover the full amount they stole, plus damages. How much? I asked quietly. Approximately $150,000. I closed my eyes. Then maybe I can finally rest. Over the next few weeks, the house transformed. The broken things were repaired, the old photographs rehung. I painted the living room a soft cream color, something new, something mine. But the nights were still lonely. Sometimes I'd wake up expecting to hear Robert's voice down the hall, calling Mom. Then I'd remember. People in town treated me differently now. At the grocery store, cashiers smiled softly. Strangers whispered, that's her, the lady who took down her own family for justice. It wasn't pride I felt, it was exhaustion. Because nobody wins in a story like this. One afternoon, I received a letter from the prison. I knew the handwriting before I opened it. Mom, it began, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that prison gives you a lot of time to think. I see now how blind I was, how easily I let Emily control me. I don't blame you for what you did. I hope someday you'll remember me as your son, not your mistake. I folded the letter and pressed it to my chest. For a moment, I could almost smell the little boy he once was, the one who used to bring me dandelions from the yard. Tears finally came, quiet and heavy. That night, I dreamed of the house as it used to be, warm light, laughter, Robert's tiny hand in mine. When I woke, I whispered to the empty room, I'll always be your mother. But I can't be your shield anymore. Life began to move again. Slow, steady, like the tide returning after a storm. I started volunteering at a community center for seniors, helping others learn how to protect their rights. Every time I told my story, someone in the room would nod, eyes shining with recognition. One woman hugged me afterward. I thought I was alone, she said. You're not, I told her. None of us are. Months passed. Then one morning, Mr. Hernandez called again. Mrs. Lewis, there's been a development. Emily's appealing the sentence. Appealing? I asked. Yes. Her lawyers claim you entrapped her, that the recordings were manipulated. The appeal hearing is next week. I felt the air leave my lungs. So it's not over after all. I'll handle it, he promised. But it might get messy. When I hung up, I looked around my house, the quiet, the photos, the neat shelves, and I felt that familiar chill of uncertainty. Linda came over that afternoon, bringing pie like always. If they think they can scare you again, she said, they don't know who they're dealing with. I smiled. Maybe not. But I'm tired of fighting, Linda. She nodded. Then fight smart, not hard. At the appeal hearing, Emily's lawyers talked for hours about technicalities. They claimed emotional manipulation, privacy invasion, coercion. I sat silently, hands folded in my lap. When the judge asked if I wanted to speak, I stood. Your Honor, the only manipulation here is the one they did to me. I am a 67-year-old woman who worked 40 years for her home. I didn't trick anyone. I defended myself. The judge nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Lewis. The court sees no reason to alter the original sentence. Appeal denied. Relief washed over me like sunlight after rain. Emily screamed from her seat, You'll die alone, Martha. I turned, looked straight at her, and said quietly, Better alone than surrounded by snakes. The guards led her away. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Mrs. Lewis. How does it feel to win again? One shouted. I paused, thinking. It doesn't feel like winning, I said. It feels like surviving. Linda drove me home. The city glowed gold in the sunset, and for the first time in years, the road ahead looked open. That night, I lit a single candle by my window, a small symbol of peace for myself and maybe, in some strange way, for Robert too. Because love doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. I whispered into the quiet, maybe one day, son, you'll understand. Weeks turned into months, and life slowly found rhythm again. I planted roses in the yard, joined a book club, and every Sunday, Linda and I cooked dinner together. Laughter returned, soft but real. Then one afternoon, an envelope arrived with a government seal. I opened it carefully. It was the final restitution notice, confirmation that every dollar stolen had been returned, plus damages. I set it on the table beside a photograph of Robert as a boy. We're even now, I said quietly. You took my peace, I took it back. That night, as the sun sank low, painting the house in golden shadow, I felt something deep inside me settle at last. But life has a way of testing peace. A week later, I received a call from the prison warden. Mrs. Lewis, he said, there's been an incident involving your daughter-in-law. I gripped the phone. What kind of incident? There was a fight in the women's wing. She's in the infirmary. She asked to see you. I froze. She wants to see me? Yes, ma'am. She said it's important. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to refuse, to stay home and forget. But a small voice inside whispered, "Finish it, Martha. Face her one last time." I took a deep breath. "Tell her I'll come tomorrow." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept wondering what she could possibly want to say. Was it an apology? Another manipulation? Or just one last attempt to break me? Whatever it was, I'd be ready. Because after everything, there was nothing left she could take from me. The next morning, I stood by my front door for a long time before leaving. The air was cool, the sky washed in pale gold. A few birds chattered in the maple outside the window, unaware that I was about to walk back into the same kind of place that had once haunted my dreams, a place full of bars, locks, and regret. Linda offered to drive. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked gently. "Yes," I said. "I need to see her. I need to look at the woman who almost destroyed me and understand why." The ride to the prison felt endless. Fields rolled by, flat and empty. Somewhere in the distance, a freight train wailed, a long, lonely sound that cut through my chest. When the facility finally came into view, I felt my heart tighten. Tall gray walls. Guard towers. The kind of place where time stops. Inside, the officer led me down a sterile hallway that smelled of bleach and sadness. Doors clanged shut behind us, each one louder than the last. "She's in the infirmary," the officer said. "You'll have 20 minutes." I nodded. My palms were cold. When the door opened, I barely recognized her. Emily sat on a metal bed, her arm in a sling, a bruise blooming along her cheek. Her hair was dull, her face thinner, paler. But her eyes, they were still sharp, still searching for control. She smirked faintly. "Well, well. The great Martha Lewis finally decided to visit." I took a seat across from her. "You asked for me." "I did." She leaned back slowly. "You look good, considering you ruined 2 lives." I folded my hands in my lap. "You ruined them yourself." She laughed, but it came out hollow. "You always think you're the hero, don't you? The brave old woman standing up to evil. But maybe you were just lucky." "Lucky?" I repeated. "I call it surviving." She shrugged, wincing from the pain in her shoulder. "Whatever helps you sleep." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Only the faint hum of fluorescent lights filled the room. Then she said quietly, "I wanted to tell you something before I'm transferred." "Transferred?" "To another facility. Upstate. Maximum security." She smiled faintly. "Apparently I don't play well with others." I watched her carefully. "What do you want to tell me?" Her eyes softened, just a little. "Robert. He's not doing well." My throat tightened. "What do you mean?" "He's different. Quiet. Keeps to himself. He doesn't eat much. He told one of the guards he doesn't want to live like this." The words hit me like a blow. She tilted her head. "I thought you should know. You're still his mother, after all." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Her lips curved into a sad smile. "Because even monsters need to confess sometimes." I studied her face. For the first time, she didn't look like the woman who'd tried to destroy me. She looked tired, haunted even. "I don't hate you, Emily," I said quietly. Her eyes widened. "You don't?" "No. Hate would mean I still care enough to keep you inside me. I let you go a long time ago." She swallowed hard, then whispered, "You really are stronger than I thought." I had to be. Silence again. Then she whispered, "Tell Robert I'm sorry." I stood slowly. "You can tell him yourself." She gave a bitter laugh. "I doubt he'll listen to me. He hates me now more than he hates you." "I'm sorry for both of you," I said. "For what greed turned you into." As I reached the door, she called after me, her voice trembling for the first time. "Martha." I turned. "Do you think people like us can ever be forgiven?" I hesitated. "Forgiveness isn't something you earn, Emily. It's something you live toward. Start living differently, maybe one day you'll find it." Her eyes glistened. She didn't speak again. When I stepped outside, the sunlight felt too bright. I breathed it in anyway. The guard walked me to the gate. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked. "Yes," I said softly. "For the first time, I think I am." That night, I wrote a letter to Robert. Not as a mother begging or judging, but as a woman who'd finally found peace. "My dear son, I visited Emily today. She told me you're struggling. I won't pretend what you did didn't hurt, but I want you to know something important. I don't wish pain on you. I wish wisdom. The kind that comes only after the fire. If you ever decide to rebuild your life, I'll be here, not with open doors, but with open prayers. Love, Mom." I mailed it the next morning. I didn't expect a reply, but somehow writing it freed something in me. Days passed. The city warmed. The roses I'd planted started to bloom, a riot of red and white along the fence. Linda joked that the house looked happier now. Maybe it was. Maybe so was I. Then, a month later, a letter arrived from the prison. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. "Mom, I got your letter." I cried when I read it. "I know I don't deserve your kindness. You were right about everything, about Emily, about me. I let greed make me someone I don't recognize. I think about the night you caught us, and I still hear your voice. Not the angry one. The disappointed one. They're transferring me to a work program. I'll be gone for a few years, but maybe one day I'll come out better. If I do, I hope you'll let me see you again. Not as the man who betrayed you, but as the boy who used to make you laugh. Your son, Robert." Tears blurred the words. For the first time, I let them fall freely, not from grief, but from release. I folded the letter and placed it next to his childhood photograph on the mantel. "That's all I needed," I whispered. "Not excuses, just truth." Life moved forward in small, beautiful ways. Linda and I started hosting Sunday lunches for neighbors who didn't have family nearby. We called it Second Chances. People came, shared food, told stories. Some laughed. Some cried. One man, a retired postman, told me quietly, "You remind me of my mother. She never gave up on me, even when I didn't deserve it." I smiled. That's what mothers do. In those moments, I realized that pain can either harden you or open you. I chose to open. Every morning, I'd walk to the park, feed the ducks, sit on the same bench Robert and I used to visit when he was little. Sometimes I'd read his letter again. Other times, I'd just close my eyes and feel the sun. 6 months later, another letter came, this time from Emily's new prison. "Martha, I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because you're the only one who ever looked at me like I could be more than what I became. I'm in therapy here. The doctor says facing your own reflection is harder than any sentence. He's right. You once told me forgiveness is something you live toward. I think I finally understand. I'm trying. Thank you for fighting me, for stopping me. You saved me from myself. Emily. I read it twice, then set it down and whispered, maybe there's hope for all of us. A year passed. Seasons changed. The house filled with warmth again, real warmth, not just sunlight. I'd found purpose teaching financial literacy to older women at the community center. Every time I showed someone how to protect their property, I felt like I was protecting a younger version of myself. One evening, while closing up, a woman in her 30s approached me. Are you Martha Lewis? She asked. Yes. She smiled shyly. I'm Emily's sister. She asked me to give you this. She handed me a small envelope and walked away before I could say a word. Inside was a photograph of Emily in the prison garden, holding a small potted plant. On the back, in neat handwriting, were just 3 words, I found peace. I stared at it for a long time. Later that night, I placed the photo beside Robert's letter. 2 broken souls, slowly finding their way back to light. 2 years later, on a warm spring morning, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Mrs. Lewis? Yes? This is Officer Daniels from the rehabilitation program. Robert's being released next month. He's completed all his training and community hours. He requested permission to visit you when he's out. Only if you agree. My heart fluttered. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Is he different? The officer chuckled softly. Ma'am, I've seen hundreds of inmates. He's one of the few I'd bet on. Works hard, doesn't complain. Talks about you all the time. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Tell him I'll think about it. After hanging up, I walked to the backyard. The garden was in full bloom, the air thick with the scent of roses and lavender. I sat on the porch steps, watching the sunlight scatter through the leaves. Linda came out carrying lemonade. You look like you've seen a ghost. Not a ghost, I said softly. Maybe a miracle. When I told her, she squeezed my hand. If he wants to see you, you should let him. Closure isn't just for endings, Martha. It's for beginnings too. She was right. The day Robert came home, the world seemed to pause. He walked up the driveway slowly, wearing plain clothes and carrying nothing but a small bag. He looked older, thinner, but there was something new in his eyes, humility, maybe peace. Hi, Mom, he said quietly. I stood in the doorway, my heart pounding. For a moment, I saw him as he was at 5 years old, mud on his shoes, a wide grin on his face. Hi, Robert. We just looked at each other. Then, without a word, I opened my arms. He hesitated, then stepped forward. The hug was awkward at first, then real. Deep, trembling, full of things words couldn't fix. I'm sorry, he whispered against my shoulder. I know, I said. And I forgive you. We stood like that for a long time. Inside, the house smelled of cinnamon and old wood. He looked around, taking in the walls, the photographs, the life he'd nearly destroyed. It's beautiful, he said softly. It's home, I replied. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where everything had fallen apart years ago. This time, there was coffee, laughter, and the quiet sound of forgiveness filling the air. He told me about his time in the program, how he worked in carpentry, learned patience, found faith again. How he writes letters for other inmates to their families. You helped me more than you know, Mom, he said. Every time I wanted to give up, I remembered that you never did. I smiled. Maybe we both grew up a little late. He laughed softly. Before he left that evening, he said, I don't know what comes next, but I want to earn my place in your life again. You already started, I said. As he walked down the path, the sunset painted the sky in warm orange light. He turned back once and waved. I waved back, tears glimmering in my eyes, but this time they were happy ones. Months later, the local paper ran a small story. Elder woman turns betrayal into empowerment. Martha Lewis helps seniors protect their homes. When people asked why I did it, I always said the same thing. Because I learned the hard way that love without boundaries isn't love, it's surrender. My story traveled farther than I ever expected. Letters arrived from women across the country, thanking me for giving them courage. Some called me a hero. But I never felt like one. I was just a woman who refused to disappear. Now, years later, I sit on my porch with Linda, sipping tea, watching the sunset fade into gold and violet. Do you ever think about them? She asks. All the time, I say. But it doesn't hurt anymore. Even Emily? I nod. Especially Emily. She taught me what survival looks like in the mirror of cruelty. We fall silent, listening to the wind move through the roses. In the distance, a car pulls into the driveway. Robert steps out, carrying a basket of groceries. He waves, and I wave back. Some wounds never vanish, but they stop bleeding when love finds its way home. As he walks up the porch steps, I whisper to myself, it took losing everything to finally see what mattered. He sets the basket down, kisses my forehead, and says, "Dinner's on me tonight, Mom." I smile. As long as you're cooking in my kitchen. We laugh together. The house glows with light, and for the first time in decades, I feel completely safe. No locks changed, no secrets hidden, no lies waiting behind closed doors. Just peace. Hard-earned, honest peace. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who believes second chances can heal even the deepest wounds. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes justice begins when you finally choose yourself.